Very good afternoon. I think we are having an excellent brainstorming sessions and we are charged up after the coffee break. So let's talk about about something which is, as you see, that the dust are settling on the Red Sea town of Sharm el-Sheikh, which I don't know exactly what would be the translation of Arabic, but to my mind, it's a Bay of Wise. So we had a deal which speaks of since 1992, particularly the small island developing states have been talking about loss and damage. So after the talks spreading over more than 40 hours, they have decided to have a pact on loss and damage. But to our utter disappointment, the talks has not really delivered what the world has aspired in terms of addressing the climatic catastrophe, which is the path towards 1.5 degrees Celsius. In Glasgow, the nation states agree to have a pathway of having the peak in 2025 and then moving towards net zero. They have also talked about adaptation. They also talked about the international organizations like reform of the World Bank, as it seems to be at the helm of the World Bank, there is someone. It is unclear whether the science has taken the decision making in World Bank, and there are lots of doubts that has been expressed in media in terms of Mr. Malpass. So we saw that terrain, and even Secretary General has to say, despite all the criticism and the brinkmanship of multilateralism, the UN Secretary General has always been vocal about climate change, and he has categorically said that we are in emergency room. So we have to act now and decisively. So to discuss that topic, we have an excellent minds with us and representing different agencies, strata, and media. We would have benefited having a kind of a gender disparity. Unfortunately, we do not have it, and we regret for that. But having said that, so what we would do, the format would be 5 minutes initial comments, then we'll move towards a question and answer, and we'll wrap up. And given the time of 50 minutes, we would try to be on the dot. So let's start with, as I mentioned, UN Secretary General has been very vocal, and different UN agencies, particularly those targeted with doing environment, UNFCCC and UNCVD and UNCDD. So this is right now, we are at the 50 years of the first Environment Convention. As we recall, it was in Sweden. The nation states gathered together to have a kind of a global effort in addressing the environment issues. Then we had, I think, one of the best charters that UN has produced after Bill of Rights was 3 sister conventions, one on climate change, then the other on biodiversity, and the third one on desertification. And that convention particularly provides the unique characteristics of common but differential responsibilities and respective capacities. So now I would really ask von Nguyen, if I pronounced you correctly, Deputy Resident Representative UNDP Bangladesh, to shed us how do the UN assess the outcome of the Sharm el-Sheikh, and also connecting with the incoming convention that would take place in Montreal, COP15 on biodiversity. So how do you see it as an UN organization in terms of really providing us a livable earth? So over to Von Nguyen.
Thank you so much, and a very good evening to all. Thank you so much for being here with us to have a very important conversation, even though it's late. And as our moderator was saying, that we are in the room of emergency. It is, but it is so sad to see that many people are still denying that there's no such a thing as a climate change. So as a part of the UN family, you may know that United Nations Development Programs, we have a flagship human development report, which produced almost every year, where we look at the human development indexes and to see how the countries are doing in terms of not only economic growth, but also in terms of human development. And last year, in 2020, the first time ever that we bring in the climate change aspect, the environment aspect, to see whether the country is doing well in terms of human development. So this is to say that as a part of the UN family, we are advocating for countries in the world to realize that looking at economic growth alone will not serve us. And we are actually, for the first time ever, that last year, the human development actually having the reversal. 9 out of 10 countries, 9 out of 10 countries actually going backwards, including Bangladesh. So we fell from 128 to 129. Very little, but we went backward. Why is that? Because the fact of the matter is that the political landscape is not conducive for the conversation. Developing countries, developed countries, there's still a lot of debates. Now, if we talk about, for example, Bangladesh is talk about development deficits. We say that in order for the country to develop, to grow, we need such ODA. The developed country, they are committed to the climate change agenda. And then they are focusing on the climate change deficit. And they try to change, they try to take the climate change deficit instead of development deficit. And for us, we say, no, you cannot supplement. We cannot substitute. We have to address both. So unfortunately, it was not very successful so far. Sharm el-Sheikh is really a situation where finally, there's one light that we are happy about, is that we have the loss and damage fund finally approved. But many things that we have been talking. And I really believe that COP is the forum for many policymakers to raise a voice, to make decisions. But it is, I see political plays a very important role in that one, and therefore the talkage has continued, and the reality has not come to the people, to the benefit of the people. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Von. You see, as Von was saying about science, and then that comes with the issue of, particularly in these age of social media, the idea of alternative facts, disinformation, misinformation, and concentration of media. So it is quite really important, in order to have a science-based decision making, the media plays a major role, both conventional media and the social media. And we have seen the power of Twitter, Facebook, and others in terms of really building opinions. So I would now request Mr. Mozammel Babu, Chief Editor, Ekattor TV, how does this mobilization of opinion building takes place when it is very difficult and the areas are sometimes very gray, what is fact and what is not fact. So how do media really plays? And then media is also susceptible to risk in terms of its advertisement. And huge amount of advertisement comes from the fossil fuel groups. And you have seen, for the first time, it has crossed, if you look at the fossil fuel lobbyist, it was more than 25% that we have seen in Glasgow. So how do you really bring the truth and how media plays into it? So it would be none other than Mozammel Babu to respond to it as a living journalist who really does it 24/7. Over to you.
The moderator Titumir Bhaiya and distinguished guests, I didn't understand how do I fit into this topic, but now I understand. He dragged me to the river to fit into the topic. But one thing he doesn't know, 35 years ago, I got a graduation degree from Engineering University.
So that's
and in civil engineering, two majors, structure and environment. 35 years ago, people didn't understand much about the implication of environment, but due course, you understand that after the publication of IPCC report, it came into being. And this is media which brought this forward to the general public. Politicians came at last. Now, politicians have joined this campaign, but they are again taken aback by the fossil fuel lobby. This is true for Bangladesh. If I come to the context, South Asia is actually one homogeneous belt, though we are divided into few countries. So what I understand from this, I'm actually a political commentator, but climate change is the biggest politics ever. So in this climate change, if the South Asia partners, if you don't combine together, if you don't combine our resources together, we cannot achieve the goal of 1.5 degrees Celsius or net zero by 2050 or even 2070. The situation is even worse now. With the Ukraine-Russia war, we are put to a situation, some of the countries are even rolling back to coal-based power plants. So when they at least move from coal-based to less emission-prone gas technologies, LNG-based technologies, now they are rolling back to coal. This is a big fear for this part of the world, India, Bangladesh. So Bangladesh set a goal, and they are rolling back from their goal. So due to the influence of the fossil fuel group, Bangladesh even couldn't achieve their goal of 10% renewable energy. Out of 25,000 megawatt installed capacity, we had a goal of 2,500 megawatt. We achieved only 250. So this is the power of the fossil fuel group, lobbies group, or who has taken this. Now, under these circumstances, on the eve of Ukraine war, the lack of energy, lack of fossil fuel, this could be, in hindsight, ma'am, this could be an opportunity for the first time for this part of the world. If fossil fuels were available, you would have availed it anyway. And the lobbies would have been so strong. They would say there is no space, no land for solar, Bangladesh wind mapping shows no hope, rivers are, big cup type area is inundated, producing, the capacity is only 230 megawatt, they are producing probably 50 megawatt. So under these circumstances, this war gives us an opportunity, we all, the civil society and media together, if we go for this campaign that use this opportunity of the fossil fuel beyond our reach. The price is so high, we can't even reach. I am organizing a campaign for Bangladesh Daytime, no fossil fuel. We start with this. Daytime, we have 120,000 megawatt hour requirement, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And this can be done with 30,000 megawatt solar power. 30,000, we have 4-hour exposure to sun. This alone can solve our 50% problem. And this, we are proposing this as a special incentive to Bangladesh, since we need dollar at this moment. So this could be a $30 billion FDI for Bangladesh. Daytime solar, 30,000 megawatt, $30 billion FDI will change the whole landscape. Let's utilize this war to use our resources towards renewable. Now, fossil fuel lobbyists are little trailing. They don't have much to offer. Let's take this opportunity. And here, one more important thing, South Asia individual countries, especially like Bangladesh, we can't solve this problem alone. Renewable energy, we don't have enough river to create hydro. Our wind mapping is not favorable. We don't have non-cultivatable land as such. So here, if South Asia comes together and build a regional green corridor, and we can produce hydro from Nepal, Bhutan, and other places. We can produce, there are places where 6 to 7 hours sun in India, so we can get solar from there, and we can have exchange, we can have a grid, and that combined. And I would thank the organizer to take up this issue in the Bay of Bengal initiative, because this is the problem. Others' problems are too big to solve. This problem is the need of the hour, and this problem, if Nepal, Bhutan, and along with India, if we combine together, we can solve it. Bangladesh, while negotiating with India, Bangladesh may not have enough river to produce hydro, but we can join rivers, we can negotiate, like Tipaimuk. 15 years back, 10 years back, when Tipaimuk issue came, some of the media went against Tipaimuk for some reason, but I was the only lone guy in favor of Tipaimuk, because if water is not diverted at Tipaimuk, it helps Bangladesh more than anybody, because it solves the problem in Haur area, flooding problem in Haur area, and at the same time we get 1,000 megawatt. So let's sit with India and others, common rivers. Let us produce hydro as much as possible. And for Bangladesh, we'll present a paper soon and circulate to all of you who are here, utilizing the opportunity of fossil fuel price hike. Fossil fuel lowest is 20 taka kilowatt hour in Bangladesh. If it is even coal, but we can get solar at 10 taka. This is the opportunity. This is the opportunity. Let's use it and create a regional connectivity to solve this problem together. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mozammel Babu, for coming up with a propositional idea about transforming crisis into a possibility. Now let's really look at the industry side. Industries are running what has come to be known as greenwashing. They are at the forefront suggesting that we are making headways. But unfortunately, what we see, and particularly in the backdrop of Ukraine conflict, the planned expansion, even in USA, as well as European Union's or European countries' interest in exploring gas in Africa, we haven't seen a transformative pathway. But it is the private sector, as an engine of growth, has to really act. So how does this kind of rhetorics could really transform into reality, while if the planned the gas projects would go on, then it would add more than 5 times of the gas supply that Russia is not giving the Europe. So it's a catastrophic proposition. Simultaneously, in the name of, say, greening the economy, there are also critics who are suggesting that this would also emit huge amount of carbon dioxide. And we have not seen any new commitment in terms of nationally determined contribution in COP27. So how do you see this? Particularly, it is always good to have a north-south divide. It is equally, and for the right reason of the climate justice. But how do we really act in our home state in terms of, say for example, Bangladesh could really have because we have some platinum environmental platinum factories which could build image, but while Rana Plaza cost us serious cost to the economy. So how do you see that, the transition going and moving beyond rhetorics? So I would request Mr. Abdul Haque, who was very kind enough to join us at the last moment, because we were supposed to have a former FBCCI president, but he was, it's kindness of Mr. Abdul Haque, who had been a director in FBCCI, which is the apex body of the industries and association, and he has been also with the Japan. I'm not saying Japan is an elephant in the room, but obviously one of the largest financier of fossil fuel across the globe. And right now it is the largest one. So over to Mr. Abdul Haque.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman and respected panelists, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished audience. Actually, what I wanted to say, Mr. Mozammel Babu has taken my words, that for Bangladesh, I think our challenges are really great because we are a densely populated country. Governments are always fighting with ever-rising population, education, food security, transportation, etc. But this sophisticated subject, net zero, is definitely a matter of concern. What we feel from the private sector to invest in this area is very, very difficult, because private sector will always see rate of return, rate of interest, investment, etc. But here with the global family, or the global authorities, global concerns, and institutions will have to think, and they are thinking, of course. What we can see from Bangladesh, that this opportunity, as Mr. Babu was very correctly mentioning, now the opportunity for regional and sub-regional cooperation has emerged more than any time else in the past. For example, alone Bangladesh cannot mitigate many of the issues. For example, China was the largest consumer of fossil fuel after United States of America. Now China has overtaken in the technological development of electric vehicle, public transportation, the electric train, etc. More than anyone in the world, I think China is growing very faster. They've invested trillions of dollars in this area. Whereas other countries are lagging far behind, even developed countries like, I'll consider even Japan is lagging far behind in China in the area of green energy concept. For Bangladesh as a small country, it's very difficult. India is also investing quite good. They are, investing in public transportation. Already public buses and trucks they are converting. For Bangladesh, I think we shall have to have sub-regional cooperation. Like the northeastern states, the historical proximity of this part of the India was that the Bay of Bengal was the actually warm water for states like Assam, Tripura, West Bengal, the part of Darjeeling, and Himachal Pradesh, and Nagaland, Mizoram, etc. This must come as a priority for now for us, that to uplift the people's life, to mitigate the emission issue. I think this is a very big issue that Bangladesh and the Indian government should consider, and the states of this area should consider. And another thing I want to mention that at the moment in our country, government has given facilities to import, more of electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles we are importing nowadays. So we are gradually, government is supporting us by reducing import duty and etc. We are also, government is doing pretty good. I think we are almost going for 60 to 70% vehicles are nowadays, other than the commercial vehicles, like big trucks, lorries or buses. Private vehicles are mostly now going for, hybrid and electric vehicles. So perhaps we are going on the right track, but as a whole, a comprehensive long-term solution must be a global issue, must be a regional issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Abdul Haque, for your intervention. So now I would move to architect Iqbal Habib, who is a civil society activist. So as we see, and the data suggests that every day fossil fuel industry makes a profit of $1 billion. And if we are really to do it, in case of Bangladesh, that's also proportionally true. And what we also see that there are issues that are not within our reach. Say, for example, high population density in a country like Bangladesh. We are the 8th largest country in the world. And while civil society has been actively engaging at the process and brought climate justice at the center of the discourse, and there are movements. So how do you really see in terms of transformation? How happy are you with the outcome of COP27? And how do you really see that while putting your feet on the ground of Bangladesh? So Mr. Iqbal Habib, who is an architect and who is also the Joint Secretary of Bangladesh Poribesh Andolon, right?
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to refer a couple of points from COP27, what we so far achieved. It was a commitment from Paris Agreement that we'll go back only 1.5 degree above the pre-industrial level, but that is not yet in act. The reason is, end of the day, there was only commitments and dialogues, but that particular notion has completely been avoided. Yes, of course, there was a lollipop came out of this, which is called Fund for Loss and Damage, and they make a transitional committee for that. Of course, the transitional committee will make recommendations on how to operationalize both the new fundings arrangements and, of course, the next huge same kind of gathering in COP28 next year. And there was new pledges and Sharm el-Sheikh adaptation agenda, which is saying that we have to enhance the resilience for the people living in the most climate vulnerable communities in 2030. So actually at the end of the day, lack of mentioning how the fossil fuels or the need to phase out those fossil fuels driven industrialization down to keep the global temperature from rising is not yet decided. This is a hocus pocus, and we are all part of it, engaging and dancing around it. Like the Glasgow summit, where I was present with Greta Thunberg on a sit on activism, where Greta Thunberg was shouting that our house is on fire, believe us, it is on fire. But yet, this summit also does not go further to call for a phase out of all fossil fuels, including oil and gas. Rather, in the name of Ukraine war, Germany and France went back to fossil fuel-driven electricity generations. And they're saying we have no other choice. As if only us, what the sufferers, has a choice. It is time to come back to focus on our ability, on our resources, on our adaptation, mobilization to fight against this. We cannot wait for the Godot anymore. It is end of discussion. And if it is so, I think when I see the open up of dialogue between US and China is going to happen, there is nothing, no outcome we can expect who are the sufferers. So what we can do, I think 50% of the people will be in cities, in town, because of the climate refugees. And it is happening to Dhaka every year with 7 to 10% per year. And we cannot afford to talk in our depth or plan like that we cannot let them come in. We have to. We have to prepare ourselves. And I have 6 agenda where we should refocus our priorities, our attention in every aspect. If we really believe it is not a net zero lollipop, it is survival of countries like Bangladesh. First, our investment on low carbon building materials, building industry, building technique, and clean energy as much as possible. Yes, I am completely in agreement with Mozammel Babu. We have to have a regional, this Bay of Bengal region can make a synergy because of India has that kind of radiation, solar irradiation, which is not in Bangladesh available. We have hydrological powerhouse, Bhutan and Nepal. We can make a synergy if we want to share the advantage of Bay of Bengal, because Bangladesh is having that advantage as a frontier. We can make a bondage, we can make a regional solution within ourselves without looking at those Western countries or China-US dialogue. Second, we have to come up with focus, public transportation modality as our main communication hub, communication solution. We cannot afford anymore this private car-driven, yes, just 1 minute, private car-driven solutions. We must come to NMT and walkable cities as soon as possible. We must have waste management reduction by recycling everything, and that is also an industrial revolution for us. And improving air quality, besides that, our flood resistance drainage, water conservation, and clean water. By the way, we don't want clean water, the potable water, every time we are having our shower and washing our clothes. We have to think in this line. And I think end of the day, it is not growth we want progress. It is not the development we want. We are development with sustainability, with inclusiveness, and definitely we want commitment, not no more commitment, but actions. And we have to be of our own. That is the motto I got from this COP27. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iqbal Habib, and particularly in terms of coming up with certain areas of cooperation in Bay of Bengal region. So, as we have seen that sometimes in COP, there are make and break situation. And there are situations when US climate envoy and the Chinese climate envoy was saying that our doors were shut. So there are geopolitical shadows that overcast the negotiation. Then we also see, after Mr. Biden's speech, there was a meeting between President Xi and President Biden face to face after both getting the one being elected, the another getting the third term. And we have seen certain movements. So that meeting happens in Indonesia, as you recollect, in Bali. So we have a panelist from Indonesia, from the International Relations Department. So we used to know, and Indonesia being the country and origin of non-aligned movement, Now we are moving towards certain club processes like G20 in a state of really United Nations. And these G20s are really, in some cases, making and breaking the ideas that advances in some circumstances really reverses the progress. So how do you rate the discussion in G20 with respect to climate change agenda? And did you see any kind of a movement towards really addressing the issue, though there are tall talks even by President Biden while he was talking about it, simultaneously he was granting permission in terms of new explorations. China is the largest emitter of the greenhouse gases. And then India made a intervention of phasing out of carbon, but that discussion didn't take place. While China and India, as we know in Glasgow, were not talking about phasing out, but phase down of fossil fuel. So how do you see that, and how that discussion is relevant in terms of Bay of Bengal? So over to Hadza, Fadhli, Robby, if I have pronounced you correctly. If I'm not, I'm really sorry.
Thank you very much, Professor Rashed Titumir. So here I'd like to provide some Indonesian perspective to the case of G20 that has just been concluded in Bali. And we have handed over the presidency to India next year. And what I'm seeing from G20 summit in the past few weeks is that there's only some symbolical result, as the end of the discussions between the environmental ministers. And Indonesia is trying to commit itself to a more green and sustainable development agenda. But the thing is that while there are 100 billion per year US dollar that will be dedicated for this energy transition program, a lot of questions need to be asked in this matter. The first thing is that while Indonesia has tried to commit itself to the just energy transition program, we, as part of Indonesian civil society, really need to ask whether this money will be used in a proper manner. I mean, the corruption has become a case, a very widespread case in Indonesia, especially in regards to development. And when a lot of money has been transferred and also has been managed as a way to transform the energy usage from the carbon-driven to the clean one, one of the questions that should be asked whether this usage of the money would be a transparent one. Would the civil society be able to monitor the usage of this money? Because many cases surrounding the international donors has also been corrupted by many local politicians in Indonesia, and this is something that also happening in many developing countries as well. Second thing is that while many people are talking about the usage of electrical vehicles as an opposition to the usage of the carbon fuel-based vehicles, we need to talk about the impact of the nickel mining that has been happening in Indonesia for so many years. Recently, from 2015 to 2022, there has been a lot of Chinese investment, a lot of investment from Western countries as well, that would like to exploit many natural resources area, and also has impacted to the natural surroundings. And this has brought impact to the civil society as well. People might get more money because of the nickel mining that will be used then to power up the Tesla vehicles and so other electrical vehicles. But we need to see that the environmental damages from this energy transition is inevitable. And several societies in East Indonesia, for example, has suffered from skin-related diseases because of this unhealthy practices of mining nickels that goes against the international standards. And another thing is that the transition to clean energy is not something that could be done suddenly in a prompt manner. Why? Because most of the electrical supplies in Indonesia is coming from steam and also coming from coal-based plants. And that is why we will need more time to to transform the energy usage, the energy resources, and it should not be an abrupt transition. It should be a very long-phased transition process. And one thing that I'd like to emphasize is actually on how we can involve more younger generation. I think that more youth people are becoming activists in this manner, but we need more action than just becoming an activist. Because we know that there are people like Greta Thunberg and also several other youth activists, but youth organizations should be more involved in the process of ensuring net zero transition. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have a few minutes. So we would have now an interactive session. So we would take at least 3 questions. So the man with the jacket on the first row.
I am Alamgir Hussain, Research Director, Bangladesh Heritage Foundation. If there are challenges because of environmental change, it is mostly because of developed countries. Because of their industrialization process, they produced huge number of carbon. And now they are pressurizing developing countries like us or underdeveloped countries to reduce the level of carbon emission. Why should the developing countries like us or underdeveloped countries like us should take this burden? Shouldn't the developed countries take this burden, or shouldn't the developed countries give the compensation to the developing countries or underdeveloped countries because of this environmental change? Thank you.
Thank you. Next. So we would like to have some question from female participants, because as I said, this is really disproportionately male-dominated panel.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm Dr. Zahid Khan from Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Aviation and Aerospace University. Very inspiring and also succinct talks. But I was just wondering, since the preamble of this plenary session also talks about how can we leverage the technologies, emerging technology to achieve net zero carbon emission. And one of the things which didn't come in the discussion is probably the prospect of geoengineering. And when I'm talking about geoengineering, I'm talking about the solar radiation reduction technology. There were studies on that, practices on that, and the UN panel was presented with the evidences. There were also carbon capture methodologies which can sort of reduce, keep the temperature at a certain constant level. So do we think, does any, and I'm very encouraged to see one of the technical engineers and an architect in the panel, Mozammel Babu sir and Habib sir. So what do you think that is there a need for the South Asian countries to come together to sort of catch up with the geoengineering platform before it's too late when application and governance of this kind of technology is done by the global north as opposed to global south? Thank you.
Anyone? Please. That's good.
Hello everyone, it's good evening. I'm Sylvie, founder and president of Artpedia Global, a non-profit youth-led organization. So my question is that since solar power and fossil fuels and electricity and all these things we have heard, so my question is, considering Bangladesh, that is it possible to accommodate solar power or solar energy everywhere in every sector, like household or house, offices, institutes? Because we have seen that new power plant projects, that is rooftop power plant projects. So instead of investing such huge amount in such a big projects, don't you think that government should invest more in solar energy or solar power plant? Not only Bangladesh, including all South Asian countries.
Okay. 2 questions, 3 questions, and I, as a non-scientist sitting in the panel, can't really respond to that. And I'm sure there are 2 science graduates here. They would be better equipped to answer those questions. But obviously, other panelists can supplement the questions that has been asked. So, Mr. Mozammel Babu.
Let me tell you, This is a huge opportunity. You know, the 60% carbon emission in this region is due to our fossil fuel. If you consider cars and industries using fossil fuel, so that 60% is only for the electricity production. If you consider industries and cars, automobiles, it is 80%. Now this is a huge opportunity to go back to natural sources. Like I give you a small calculation. Bangladesh needs 120,000 megawatt hour in 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So in this 120,000 megawatt hour can be produced from 30,000 megawatt power solar panel. And how do you get it? Small example will be enough. So government has established 200,000 ashram house for the homeless. We all know. Each of them 750 square feet roof area. Each of them, if the roof is cladded with solar panels, each of them can produce 10 kilowatt hour. So these rooftops only can produce 1500 megawatt. If you consider the schools, another 1500. College, another 1500. Trust me, this 30,000 megawatt we can produce from rooftops only. And government has established bi-directional grid net metering system. That means in your home, if you produce 10 kilowatt hour, you consume 20 kilowatt hour, there is a balance, there will be a plus minus billing. So you'll have to pay only for 10. This is the opportunity when solar power is cheaper than fossil fuel. Let's take the opportunity and create the movement. One more thing, this is the time when if you even throw away our established fossil fuel based power plant, this is even cheaper. Don't just throw away and go to
Thank you,
energy.
Thank you, Mr. Babu. Mr. Iqbal Habib. Very 40 seconds.
Yes, but first of all, the building materials, the climate, we have to adopt proper building materials. And our climate is such that at least 8 months, we don't need air conditioning system. We forgot that the advantage of this country is to be pro-environmental structure and taking advantage of that. That is one. Number two is definitely turning everything from private or individualistic to collective, to public transportation system. This is the time we should turn our cities like Bogota. Now, the idea is the decision makers are all like me, riding private cars. We are not shifting ourselves from this to that. And last but not the least, we have to consider, yes, a little bit different with Mozammel Bhai, that of course we have very less amount of land, with only 13 to 14%, which we need to leave for our accommodations, for our industries and all others. And also the irradiation of the solar irradiation. We have lesser solar irradiation than even India. But of course, we have to be conservative in use. One example, I will finish my argument. I have done a building called Krishi Vidya Institute. Only thing I have done, separated the total water line. We take from Wasa one line and rest reuse the shower water and the other water to use in our WC. By doing that, 46% of the need of the fresh, very expensive water came down. You see, innovation, looking at our resources should be our main turning point. This is the time.
Thank you, Iqbal Bhai. So, Bolna Nguyen, about this unequal world, and then.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I would not be surprised to hear that questions because that mindset is still very much prominent in many countries. Bangladesh is in many countries, so as in many countries like Vietnam, where I am from, we still have the mindset of being the victim. And therefore, we used to say that we are not the one who is responsible for that, and other developed countries need to pay. So in COP and in many other international forums, we are negotiating and we are fighting for what we call the climate justice. And that process is going on. But before we we win that battle, we also have to save ourselves. Save ourselves by how? I just give you an example, and this is for you to decide. Bangladesh air pollution kills how many people? 15,000 people a year. How many hours that we are losing? 18 million hours per day. That is a lot of money. That costs a lot of money. So if we are able to have, we save ourselves first. And that is that as we continue to continue
Thank
with
you.
the
Thank
fight.
you.
Yeah.
No, we have already, our time is, do you want to say anything, 10 seconds?
Just a supplement that in Bangladesh, the government has developed one company called Infrastructure Development Company Limited. It's a 100% state-owned company. I'm from the private sector, one of the director and the board. What we are doing is actually, we are gradually going for solar power projects like all the industries, large industries. We are financing at a low interest rate for a long-term basis that they are producing solar power. Panels are planted on the roofs, and they can even, if they produce more, they can sell to the government. We can buy back. So this way, we are going ahead. I think it's a very good success in Bangladesh. Globally, we have made some points like.
Right. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Fadhli.
Just one more sentence. I think that next year India should consider a lot more voices from developing countries in order to accelerate the climate justice agenda in the global climate governance. Thank you.
We hope G20 summit in Delhi would really usher a new era. Having said that, the discussion is of serious nature and we have certain solutions, but what we have not seen that the politicians are not acting based on science, and that's the difference. And what we really need is to see that 1.5 degrees Celsius agenda is not in emergency room. And we need a relationship between human and nature, because as we have seen how zoonotic diseases can really reverse the progress that has been made in 30 years in terms of SDGs, in terms of poverty reduction, in terms of gains achieved in education, health, and many places. So there are multiple crises, overlapping crises. What we need, statesmanship, not a brinkmanship, and that's the way forward. But we are quite hopeful, particularly given the youth's commitment to the issue and the way they are acting, and it makes us quite hopeful. With that note, we end this plenary, but I'm sure our panelists had many things to say, and please feel free to interact with them during the tea break or dinner break. Thank you so much.